You know how sometimes something can happen and you feel like you're just getting sucked into a dark place? It could be feeling sad, it could be feeling mad, guilty, overwhelmed, etc. Whatever it is, doesn't feel good. Imagine you could have a four-step process, very simple system to train your brain to look at these experiences differently, to get the lesson so that next time something like that happens, you have a new, refreshing, positive approach to it. They say there's a lesson in every adversity, but maybe, just maybe, you've never learned how to find the lesson. Poet is that process. Four easy steps that I'm going to review with you in this short video will teach you how to find more of the things you want out of life and fewer of the things that you don't want. This is a protocol that I developed in 2007, and I've taught it to literally hundreds of people over the years. So stay tuned because you get to have it for free. I'm George Gillis, and this is Poet. And you're probably wondering why you should even listen to me. So, I've been in the world of sales, sales training, management for over 40 years. I'm a master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming, NLP, and a few other disciplines. I'm a Colby certified consultant and performance specialist. And I've been a MAPS performance coach with Keller Williams Realty since 2019. And I won their Performance Coach of the Year for 2023. This protocol, I want to stress, this is something that came to me. I didn't take a bunch of theory and try to write something cool. I reverse engineered a profound experience, documented it, tested it on myself, tested it on others, and taught it to be sure that it works. And since 2007, the simplicity of Poet has proven to be effective. The genesis of Poet starts here with Barbaro. Barbaro was a horse that's tracking to be a rare Triple Crown winner. At the 2006 Preakness Stakes in Pimlico Racecourse in Baltimore, Maryland, the 3-year-old thoroughbred started falsely and had to be led back to the gate. He was jittery, he was nervous, and at the bell, he broke well. But then, about 70 yards down the track, he pulled up with a broken right rear leg. Any other horse likely would have been put down on the track. But this was Barbaro. He was a rare horse. He was taken to the University of Pennsylvania's New Bolton Center, specialized veterinaries facility in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. And that's where I got attached to the story because I used to live in Kennett Square. The goal was to save Barbaro, no expenses spared. A few months later, Poet was born. I promise I'll tell you the rest of the story, so stick around to the end. Let's begin. Poet is a four-step process, like I said, to find more of what you want and less of what you don't. I'm going to give you a couple different examples on how to use this, but we're going to start with the negative first because it's a little easier to understand. So let's say you're going through your day, you're feeling pretty good, and then something happens and boom, you slide down into the pits. Now, how fast does that happen? How quickly do you go from feeling okay to feeling bad? The classic example I've used with this is, somebody is they just broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend. They're driving down the street. They're feeling okay, and then their song comes on the radio. Oh no! Or they happen to drive by our restaurant, and boom! All of a sudden, they're down in the pits, feeling miserable, feeling sad. Well, here are some of the common thoughts that people have when that happens to them. Why is this happening now? What I do to deserve this? What's wrong with me? Or very simply, I'm not going to repeat it because you know what it is. WTF. What do you say to yourself when that happens? What words do you use to keep yourself stuck in the process? The process of Poet is going to change this for you. The four letters are very simple: pause, observe, examine and engage, and then thank. And we're going to get into each of these in detail. It's a very, very simple process. P is first, pause. What we want to do is become aware that we're starting to slide down into the pits. Keep in mind, nothing happens unless there's awareness. We don't want to overthink this. This has to be something that's short, something that's fast, something that's simple, something that you can repeat. Wait, ho, stop, hold it, whoa, something like that, that you can say to yourself just to become aware that your mood is starting to slide. Keep in mind, by the way, all this is done inside of your head, so you can do it anywhere once you start to understand and incorporate and internalize this process. I believe that all change comes from inside and out. So you don't need to yell anything. You don't need to scream. This is just something that you say to yourself. I personally like the word huh, because huh gets my attention and lets me know that I've noticed. Remember, awareness is first. So the P of poet is pause. The next step is to observe. Now, here's where the words make a difference. If you think back to the other slide, why is this happening to me? What's going on? Why is this happening again? These are words that tend to keep you focused on the past and focused on the problem. So this time, we're going to change the words. If you want this to really be successful for you, these 5 words make a difference. How do I do this? Or if you want an option, how do I do that? How do I do this? How do I do that? The purpose of this, the O, the observe, is to cause confusion. Because my guess is that if you say that to yourself, how do I do this? There's a little part of your brain saying, huh? What? What's going on? So now we have pause and observe. Huh? How do I do this? 6 simple words whose sole purpose is to stop the slide into the pits, cause a little bit of confusion, and cause a pause. Now, here's why the words how do I do this are important. First, the this or the that, if you want an option. How do I do this? How do I do that? You're already in the feeling. There's no reason to add a whole lot of words to it and say, how do I do this feeling of feeling so miserable that I want to go home, turn on the radio, turn on the TV, turn off the phone, break out a box of ice cream and just eat it all and have people leave me alone. The more words that you give the emotion that you're in, the more neurons you're connecting in your brain, the more power you're giving to this emotion. You're already in it. You don't have to label it as anything other than this or that. How do I do this? How do I do that? Keep this in mind because this is critically important and you're going to see why later on. Now, the first word in the sentence, how. How questions the process. How stimulates curiosity. How creates a little bit of confusion in your brain. And confusion is what we want. Confusion always precedes understanding. Confusion always precedes clarity. So, how do I do this? I challenge you right now. Take a moment and just run those 5 words through your mind. How do I do this? Almost guaranteed there's going to be a feeling of what? Just that moment of confusion. Moment of confusion. It's pause and observe. Huh, how do I do that? How do I do this? All we want to do is stop the slide. The confusion opens your mind for the next set of instructions. So the P and the O, huh, how do I do this? Pause, observe. Next comes the examine and engage. Now, here's where it really gets important. Most people, when they're thinking about what's going on in their head, they're thinking about the problem. They're thinking about the past. Why is this always happening to me? Why is this happening again? So it's almost like there's a little part of your mind that basically says, oh, you want to know why? I'll tell you why. Because 876 other times something just like that happened and you responded exactly the same way then. So you're going to respond the same way now. Now you got 877 of them, Charlie Brown. How you feel? So if you ask why, your mind is going to go back and look for the answers. So rather than looking for negative things from the past, let's focus on positive things that are based in the future. Positive things that are based in resources and solutions and future based as opposed to negative problems and past based. What would happen when you catch yourself sliding emotionally and you say, huh, how do I do this? And the next question is, what can I learn from this that'll make me a better person? What can I get from this so that next time I can handle it better? Here's the big one. What can I learn from this that'll help me become the person I desire to be? What can I learn from this so I can avoid it altogether in the future? Isn't that a better question to ask yourself to look for the resources and focus on the future as opposed to focusing on the problems and the past. So positive, future-based, solution-oriented questions is the examine, because you're examining the situation and engaging your mind to look for solutions that are future-based. So now we have the P, the O, and the E. We're at the PO of poet. Pause, observe, examine, and engage. How do I do that? What can I learn from this that'll help me be better? Now, here's the hard part. The hardest part of this whole deal is you have to be able to let it go. Let it go. If you sit around thinking and waiting for the answer of what can I get from this, you'll probably be disappointed. Most of the time, it's going to come to you very, very subtly. And you want to be able to let it go and let your subconscious mind do the work. The process of poet is using your conscious mind through this language pattern to actually train your subconscious. Again, hold on to that thought. You'll see how it ties together in a few minutes. But you're actually training your subconscious mind consciously so that it can go to work for you. Let me give you an example of why you want to be able to let it go. My guess is that you've been in a situation where you've forgotten something. You're in a conversation with somebody, you've forgotten a person, place, or a thing. And you say to them, geez, I can't remember right now. Well, here's the mind bend on that. To know that you forgot is to know that you know. Let me say that again. To recognize the fact that if you've forgotten something is to know that you know it. You can only forget things that you already know. If you didn't know them, you couldn't have forgotten them. You probably don't know how to do a human liver transplant because you haven't forgotten that because you never knew how. Remember back in high school, maybe, or college, maybe you had an algebra problem or a physics problem or a chemistry problem or something like that, or you had writer's block and you couldn't find the answer. You're staring at the book and it doesn't come to you. You lay down, you close your eyes, or maybe you wake up the next morning, you look at the book and boom, there's the answer, clear as a bell. Your subconscious mind will work on the instructions that you give it and it'll go search for the answers. So when you ask your mind, what can I learn from this so the next time I can do better, and let it go, you're just taking the brakes off. You're letting your subconscious work for you. I had a great experience with this years ago. I was at a networking event and with a friend of mine, and for whatever reason, I don't recall why, but for whatever reason, we were trying to remember the name of the dog on the show, or the breed of the dog on the show, Frasier. And talking with Mike, and neither one of us, we couldn't remember it. And so I started another conversation with another gentleman. And a couple minutes into that conversation, I asked him if I could pause for a second, turn around. Mike was still standing behind me. I tapped him on the shoulder, looked at him and said, Jack Russell Terrier. And he looks at me and goes, how the heck did you do that? It's like, Mike, this is what I do. This is what I do for a living. When you think about something and try to remember it, the harder you try to remember to what happens, right? It goes further and further and further away. So just give your mind the instructions. What can I learn from this? Let it go. Let it go, and the answers will come. Cute dog. Jack Russell Terrier. There you go. So the process of poet, pause, observe, examine, and engage, let it go, brings us to thank. Now, originally, when I was reverse engineering this, the pause, the observe, and the examine part were pretty obvious to me. And the last part of it was gratitude. And I remember sitting there thinking, Poeg. God, that's really close. But poeg made no real marketable sense to me. So I needed another word for gratitude, and that was thank. Close enough. Thank yourself that you caught it. Be grateful that you caught it. I think this through. You're sliding down this pit into the bad feelings, the negative feelings. The faster you catch it, the faster you're going to feel okay again. Maybe not really positive, but at least back to neutral. So thank yourself. Give yourself a little hug, a little spiritual high five. Just say, hey, I'm glad I caught it. Again, you'll see how this all plays out in a minute. But do the whole process and remember to be grateful that you caught it. Here's the deal. When we are in gratitude, there's very little room for almost any other emotion to be there except for positive ones. So give yourself the gift of catching it focusing on what you can learn from this so that you can get better at it going forward. The process happens quickly. If this takes you more than 30 seconds, it's actually more like 5 to 10. You're overthinking it and you're slowing the whole process down with your conscious mind. So pause, observe. How does this, I almost forgot it. Pause, how do I do this? How do I do that? Examine, engage. What can I learn from this so that I can handle it better next time it comes up? Let it go. Be grateful that you caught it. That's the process for the negative event. Here's another really neat application of poet. How many times have you witnessed somebody doing something that's just plain goofy and you're saying to yourself, what the blank is wrong with this person? What are you thinking? Why did you do that? All these judgmental questions that serve only to get you more irritated. Instead, observe the situation and ask yourself, how does he do that? And be curious about the behavior. Huh, how does she do that? How? Question the process, not the person. Let me say that again. How does she do that? Questions the process, not the person. It creates a buffer. It's a need for a new approach. It creates an opportunity to get new information, keeps you dissociated and out of judgment. How does she do that? Had a situation with a client years ago where her teenage daughter would come home every day. And if you know teenage girls, you'll probably be able to relate to this one. Mom was at home, young lady would come in the door, and the teenager would just push mom's buttons. And every day it was boom, 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 and it would just blow up. She would say something, mom would react back and forth, blow up, and they'd wind up screaming at each other in a matter of minutes. Girl would stomp off, mom would be all upset. So I coached mom to be able to do nothing, say nothing other than repeat to herself, how does she do that? With total curiosity, no judgment, no feedback. How does she do that? So young lady comes home, starts her same pattern with mom. Mom doesn't respond. She just looks at her with this curious face. So the girl attacks from a different direction. And we all know that she's just looking for attention. So mom just stayed quiet. Girl stomped off, slammed her door, went to her room. This happened for a few days in a row. And I think about a week later, if I remember right, mom calls me up and says, the most amazing thing happened. Her daughter came home and completely changed the way she talked to mom. And they had an actual conversation about her day and what was going on. Because in communication, there's a transmission, there's a reception, and it all depends on what you feed back. If you feed back with aggression to aggression, you're going to get more aggression. If you feed irritation with irritation, you get more irritation. But if you feed it with curiosity, the transmitter has to change the pattern. So this little technique of how does she do that saved them from going to family counseling. Doesn't work all the time. Nothing works all the time. But I recommend you give this a shot because it really is kind of interesting what it does to communication. So now we have two different situations. How to use it for yourself, how to use it when you're looking at somebody else or watching somebody else. Now, here's the fun part. How do you make this strong? You're going through your day, and let's say you're having, I don't know, an 8.2 on a 1 to 10 scale for the day. You're feeling pretty good. You're feeling pretty happy. And then you see something like this picture with a young girl hugging on her puppy. I don't know about you. I'm a dog guy. And, you're looking at something. It doesn't have to be big. It could be a nice cup of coffee. It could be a beautiful sunny day after a rainy weekend. It could be a smile from a friend. It could be a kitten curling up on your lap. I don't know. It could be birds chirping. Just notice the little things that give you a little positive bump. So if you're at an 8.2 and you see something like this and your heart goes to an 8.6 or a 9, you say to yourself, how do I do this? What can I learn from this event so I can catch more of them? Man, I'm glad I caught it. Then you see something else during the day. You get another little bump in your attitude. Oh, how do I do that? What can I learn from this so that I can catch more of these and feel better and start observing more positive things? I am so glad I caught it. And what'll happen is you start to train your brain. You may be familiar with the term reticular activating system, that subconscious part of your brain that makes the unknown known and familiar. You start to train your brain to seek out more events that are positive simply by running the same pattern. How do I do this? Asking a positive, results oriented question, and thanking yourself for catching it. POET. So that when you need it, the muscle is stronger. So you build this on all the positive little things that are happening during the day. Notice the things that are giving you a good feeling. Notice the things that make you smile. They don't have to be big, but when you run the same pattern on all the little things, pause, observe, examine, engage, and thank, you're training your brain to find more and more of those events. So that's Poet. 4 easy steps to train your brain to find more of the things you want and fewer of the things that you don't want. So let me bring you back to Barbaro. You see the dates on there, April 29th, 2003 to January 29th, 2007. I was driving in my car on January 29th, 2007 on one of the highways around Phoenix at about 65, 70 miles an hour, had the radio on, and the DJ comes on and says, "We have some sad news for you horse racing fans. We just found out that Barbaro has been euthanized." And I felt like somebody just kicked me in the gut. Now, I got to explain, I'm not a horse racing guy, but I was following the story, and this horse was in and out of surgeries and touch and go for months. And when I got that news, I was instantly in the pits. Now, part of this process is what I've learned to do with NLP, and that is ask the question of my clients, how do they do what they do? So I asked myself that question. I went, how do I do this? And an interesting thing happened. I had to pull off. I got off the highway because my brain was running a million miles an hour on this thing. And I had this image in my head of Barbaro laying on his side in a stable. This isn't the way it happened, but this was the picture that was in my head. I'll try to explain it so you get it. So Barbaro's laying on his left side in the stable. People are around hugging and crying, and the veterinarian's leaning over Barbaro with a stethoscope on his chest. The vet stands up and says, "It's done. He's gone." And I'm still upset, right? I'm still sad when I'm thinking about this. And then in my mind's eye, I see this golden spirit of Barbaro rising up out of his body, gets up about 10, 15 feet up in the air, and he rights himself. Now he's upright. He looks back over his right shoulder at his people and at his body, and he gives one definitive neigh, that sound that horses make. Then he looks up and he just, boom, takes off like a flash, just, boom, and he's gone. And then I heard distinctly 6 words. I heard, "He's free, no pain, no limits." He's free, no pain, no limits. And I didn't feel bad for Barbaro anymore. I wasn't happy that he was gone, but I didn't feel bad for him. Sad would have been a thoroughbred who's born to run that isn't even able to walk. Sad would have been living in a sling because he couldn't hold his own body weight up. Sad would have been his people keeping him alive through all that pain and misery where he couldn't run, let alone even walk. So the fact that he's free, no pain, no limits, and I felt pretty good after that, caused me to cancel my appointments for the day, find a little restaurant, and try to reverse engineer just what the heck happened to me. And Poet was born. So you don't have to wait for it. Find the things that make you smile. This is my pup. That's Wendy. I look at this picture and I just smile because she was having so much fun. If you look really carefully down at the bottom by her feet, there's a tennis ball that she destroyed in about 10 seconds. All right. So find the things that make you smile and run the pattern. How do I do this? What can I get from this so I can find more things to make me smile even wider? I am so glad I caught it, man. And when you do that over and over and over and over again, you'll train your brain for the pattern. So when the negative thing comes along, you'll have something very, very powerful to help you get through it. So there you go. That's Poet. One last thing, I'm going to ask you to stay and hang in for a second. If you like this, if you got something out of it, you're going to love this program, Distressed to De-stressed in 6 minutes or less. I've been doing what I've been doing now for 20 plus years. And this program, Distressed to De-stressed, is a compilation of so many things that I've learned in private practice, in coaching, as in sales, and just in dealing with people for as long as I have been, that my goal here is that stress is a major problem in society today, and it's not going anywhere. It's permanent. You can't escape the fact that there's stress. So I wanted to be able to teach people ways that they can manage themselves through stress. Okay. That's what this course is all about. And, would it be crazy to guess that you or somebody you know is dealing with stress or maybe not so well dealing with it? And if you consider the concept that there's no such thing as stress management, it's only self management. You can't manage stress. You can't exert control and direction over the events in your life that are going to cause you stress because most of them come up, they're completely out of your control, and they come up to you blindsided and they just hit you. So the only thing that we can do, the most effective thing that we can do, the most resilient thing that we can do is learn how to manage ourselves through those stressful situations. And Distressed to De-stressed is the course that gives you these tools. I'm asking you to go check d2din6.com. Check it out. If it resonates with you, I'd love to see you in this course. It's an online course, which means that you can take it at your leisure. It's techniques that are physical, techniques that are mind-based. Some are very, very simple. Some are kind of deep. We go deep dive into some NLP, but they're practical tools that you can use in the moment as opposed to waiting days or hours until after that stress event is over. This teaches you how to deal with it in the moment. That's what makes this unique. Distressed to De-stressed in 6 minutes or less, d2din6.com. If there's any questions that you have for me, please feel free to reach out. I have my phone number on there. I'm going to recommend email is best. If you have any questions about what I might be able to help you with, let's have a conversation. I do private one-on-one coaching. There's a Colby Index, which is a whole other conversation. It's all about how you actually go out and do things. It's the cognitive part of your mind. You have the feeling part of your mind, the thinking part of your mind. The Colby Index talks about how we actually do things. And what I found is that a lot of stress today is caused by people in jobs trying to do jobs in a way that are trying to do the work in a way that they're not really wired for. So would it be ridiculous to say that we'd be better off changing how we do the job to fit the way that we're wired as opposed to trying to change us to fit the job? And of course, there's workshops and keynotes. Hey, any kind of question that you have, please shoot me an email at george@georgegillis.com. I'll be happy to get back to you at the 24 hours at the very, very most. And thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope you enjoyed Poet. I hope you enjoyed all the applications. Please try it. The feedback that I've gotten for this for almost 20 years is that this is a life changer. It's really simple and it's extremely effective. Take care. Thank you very, very much for your time.